Daniel had always thought life would be quieter after he left the busy space colonies. He had moved to a small human settlement on the edge of the neutral zone. A place where alien and human borders met, but rarely mixed. It was peaceful here until Leora came into his life. Leora was unlike anyone Daniel had ever met. She was from the Zellery, a race known for their elegance, its intelligence, and strict traditions. Her skin had a soft silver shimmer under sunlight. Her eyes deep violet with faint golden rings. They had met when Daniel was hired to repair a Zelari transport ship, and somehow, over months of unexpected meetings, quiet conversations, and small acts of kindness, they had fallen in love. Against all odds and against many disapproving voices, they had married. Their home was a small dome-shaped house near the forest edge, away from the gossip of other settlers. Daniel thought things were going well, but one evening, while they were having dinner, Leora put down her fork and gave him a look that made him pause. It was not anger, not fear, but a strange mix of worry and hesitation. "Daniel," she began slowly, her voice calm but heavy, "my younger sister, Selena, is coming here. She knows nothing about humans." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Nothing? Not even basic manners?" Leora shook her head. "Where we come from, humans are distant, not part of our daily lives. Selena has only heard stories, some good, many bad." Daniel nodded slowly. "All right, so you'll teach her, right? Show her around, help her understand." Leora's eyes didn't leave his. "That's the thing. I want you to be the one to train her." Daniel froze for a second, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Me? Train her? Why? You know her better. And she's your sister." Leora's fingers tapped against the table nervously. "She needs to learn from a human man she can trust, Selena. She will test you, push boundaries, and watch your reactions. If she learns from you, she will understand not all men are dangerous." Daniel leaned back in his chair. The request felt strange, too strange. He had never met Selena, yet he was being asked to be her guide, her teacher in human ways, and the way Leora spoke. It sounded as if Selena wasn't just a curious sister, but someone with a dangerous edge. Before he could ask more, Leora glanced toward the window, her eyes narrowing. "She's arriving sooner than I expected." Daniel followed her gaze and saw faint lights in the sky, growing brighter by the second, a ship sleek and silver, cutting through the darkening clouds, heading straight for their home. "You didn't tell me she'd be here tonight," Daniel said, standing. "I wasn't sure until now." Leora replied, her voice low. Her tone sent a small shiver down his spine. Outside, the air grew heavy with the low hum of the ship's landing thrusters. Dust swirled around as it descended in the open field near the house. Daniel stepped to the doorway, heart thumping not with excitement, but with a strange unease. The ramp lowered, steam hissing from the edges. A figure appeared at the top, tall, graceful, with the same silver-shimmered skin as Leora. Her long hair flowed like strands of liquid gold, catching the last light of the setting sun. Her eyes locked onto Daniel instantly. They were brighter than Leora's, more intense, almost sharp, and in that first moment, he felt as though she was not just looking at him, she was reading him. Selena walked down the ramp slowly, each step controlled, her gaze never breaking. When she reached the ground, she didn't greet her sister first. Instead, she circled Daniel once, her movements quiet and deliberate. Finally, she stopped in front of him, tilted her head slightly, and said, "So, you're the human." Her voice carried curiosity, but also something like challenge. Daniel opened his mouth to reply, but Leora stepped between them. "Selena, this is Daniel, my husband. And he's the one who will help you learn." Selena's lips curved into a faint smile. "I see," she said softly. "Then I will enjoy testing him." Daniel frowned at the choice of words. Testing him. What did that mean? Leora shot her sister a warning look, speaking quickly in their own language. Selena chuckled under her breath, but said nothing more. They stepped inside the house, but Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something had just shifted in his life. The air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. He wasn't sure what kind of training this was going to be, but he already knew it wouldn't be simple. That night, as the forest outside whispered in the wind and the alien ship hummed quietly in the field, Daniel lay awake. Leora slept beside him. But her breathing was uneven. She was worried too, and in the guest room across the hall, Selena was here. He could almost feel her presence. Somehow, he knew she was thinking about him as much as he was thinking about her, not in a romantic way, but like a player studying the opponent before the game begins. The game, he realized, had already started, and tomorrow the first lesson would begin. The next morning began with the sound of the forest waking up. Bird-like creatures chirped from the tall trees, and the faint hum of the alien ship still echoed in the open field. Daniel had barely slept, his mind replaying the strange encounter at the doorway the night before. When he stepped into the kitchen, he found Leora already preparing breakfast human food for him, and a special plate of Zalari fruit for her sister. Selena was nowhere in sight. "She's still in her room," Leora said, without looking up, her tone a little too careful. "Give her time, Daniel. She is not like me." Daniel frowned. "You mean she's not as friendly?" Leora hesitated, then answered, "Friendly isn't the word. Selena is observant. She studies people before she decides what they mean to her." Before Daniel could ask more, footsteps echoed from the hall. Selena appeared, dressed in a flowing dark green outfit that shimmered faintly with every move. Her hair was brushed perfectly, her golden strands almost glowing in the morning light. But her expression was unreadable, calm, yet intense. She didn't greet them. Instead, she walked to the table and sat opposite Daniel, her violet gold eyes fixed on him like a scientist watching an experiment. Daniel tried a polite smile. "Good morning, Selena." "Good morning," she repeated slowly, as if tasting the words. Humans always say that at the start of the day. "Yes, it's polite," Daniel explained. "It's a way of wishing someone well." Selena tilted her head slightly. "And if you do not wish them well?" Daniel hesitated. "Then you stay quiet. Or avoid them." Selena's lips curved faintly. "Interesting." They began eating. Daniel noticed she mimicked his every move, how he picked up his fork, how he sipped his drink. It might have been innocent, but it felt deliberate, like she was learning more than just manners. Halfway through the meal, Selena set her fork down and looked directly at him. "So, human. My sister says you will teach me how to live among your kind." Daniel nodded. "Yes, starting with basic customs, how to greet people, how to trust you." She interrupted, her voice low but clear. Daniel blinked, unsure if she meant it as a question or a challenge. Before he could reply, Leora spoke. Sharply in their language, Selena leaned back in her chair, smirking as if she had won a small game after breakfast. Daniel decided to start the first lesson with something simple: handshakes. In human culture, it was a basic way to greet someone. He explained the meaning to Selena: a sign of mutual respect, a gesture of trust. "All right," Daniel said, extending his hand toward her. "You grip it firmly, then release." Selena stood slowly, stepped closer, and took his hand. Her grip was strong, too strong, and she didn't let go. Her eyes locked on his, studying every flicker of expression. Daniel felt the pressure in her fingers tighten, not painfully, but enough to make a point. "You are not afraid," she said softly. "Most humans would pull away by now." Daniel kept his voice calm. Trust works both ways. "Selena," she finally released his hand, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps you will make an interesting teacher after all," she murmured, as they moved to the living area. Daniel noticed how Selena's gaze roamed over every object, his tools, the old photographs on the wall, the books on the shelf. She touched a framed picture of him and Leora, her fingers tracing the edges. "You smile here," she said. "Humans show their teeth when happy." "Yes," Daniel replied. "It's how we express joy." Selena tilted her head again. "And when you want to hide something?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. This girl wasn't just curious, she was probing, testing his limits with every question. Later that afternoon, Daniel stepped outside to repair a loose panel on the water system. Selena followed without asking. She watched him work in silence for several minutes before speaking. "Tell me, Daniel, do all human men protect their mates?" "Yes," he said firmly, "if they care about them, and if another wanted to take her." Selena's voice was calm, but the question was sharp. Daniel stopped working and looked at her. "Then I would protect her even more." Selena's lips curved into that same faint smile. "Good," she said simply. And then she turned and walked back toward the house without another word. When Daniel returned inside, Leora was waiting for him. Her expression was tense. "What? Did she ask you?" Daniel hesitated. "Questions. Strange ones." Leora sighed. "She is measuring you, Daniel. She does this with everyone she meets, but with you, it is more important." Daniel frowned. "Important for what?" Leora looked toward the guest room where Selena had gone, her voice low. "For deciding whether she can trust a human man with her life?" That night, the house was quiet, but Daniel had the uneasy feeling. He was being watched, and somewhere in the dark hallway, a pair of violet gold eyes were indeed watching him, studying, measuring, deciding. Tomorrow, the first real test would begin, and Daniel had no idea what it would be. The morning sun spilled soft golden light through the dome-shaped windows. Daniel woke early, deciding today would be the start of Selena's real training. He knew he had to keep it simple, but also meaningful, something that would teach her more than just words. When he entered the kitchen, Selena was already there. She sat at the table, her posture perfect, her hair brushed to a shine, but her eyes, those sharp, violet gold eyes, followed his every move. "You're early," Daniel said casually. "I was waiting." Selena replied, her voice smooth. "You said we begin today." Leora served breakfast, but she stayed quiet. Daniel could tell she was watching both of them carefully. Selena, meanwhile, seemed calm. But he had learned that her calmness was never truly commit, was a mask. After breakfast, Daniel led Selena outside to the small courtyard behind the house. The air was crisp, and the scent of forest flowers drifted in the wind. Lesson 1. Daniel began. "We'll start with sharing a meal human style. It's more than eating food. It's about respect and connection." Selena gave him a curious look. "You want to teach me by eating again?" Daniel smiled slightly. "It's not about the food, it's about what happens when people share it. Watch, listen, and follow my lead." He set a small table with bread, fruit, and roasted vegetables. Selena sat across from him, mimicking the way he folded his napkin. For the first few minutes, she followed quietly, copying his actions exactly. But then, her questions began. Why do humans face each other when eating? To see each other's expressions, Daniel explained. It shows you're paying attention. Why do you pass food to others before yourself? It shows generosity, Daniel said. It means you value their needs too. Selena tilted her head. And what if you do not value them? Daniel paused. Then the meal loses its meaning. Selena stared at him for a long moment before taking a piece of bread and passing it to him without a word. Daniel accepted it, wondering if it was a test or an actual gesture of respect. Halfway through the lesson, Selena leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Tell me, Daniel, when humans share a meal, is it ever a challenge?" He frowned. "Sometimes, if there's mistrust, the meal can feel like a battle of silence." She smiled faintly. Good. Then let's see if you can eat in silence with me. The rest of the meal passed without either of them speaking. Every bite felt heavier, every glance sharper. Daniel realized she was watching to see if he would break first. But he kept his composure until the end. When the lesson was over, Selena stood. Not bad, human. You have patience. Later that afternoon, Daniel moved the training to the workshop. Lesson 2, he said, working together. Humans often need to cooperate to build or fix something. It builds trust. He handed her a small toolkit and pointed to a broken water purifier on the bench. Selena studied the device, her long fingers running over its edges. Humans fix things themselves. She asked, sometimes, Daniel said. It teaches problem solving. They began working side by side, but it didn't take long for trouble to start. Selena questioned every decision he made. Why not take it apart from this side? Why? Do you use that tool instead of another? Are you sure this will not make it worse? Daniel kept his answers calm, but her constant challenges were wearing on him. Finally, she reached over and made an adjustment without asking. A burst of steam to hiss out of the purifier. Daniel stepped back, careful. That could have burned you. Selena looked at him with a strange smile, but it didn't. That's not the point, Daniel said firmly. Working together means trusting the other person's judgment, not trying to prove them wrong. Every time her expression shifted slightly, the smile fading for the first time. She seemed to consider his words seriously. I see, she murmured. So, trust is not just about strength. It is also about letting go of control. Exactly, Daniel said. He thought the moment might have been a breakthrough until Leora appeared in the doorway. Her voice tense. Daniel, a message came from the colony. There's been a sighting of strangers in the outer woods. Selena's eyes lit with interest. Strangers? Perhaps another test for me. Daniel shook his head. This isn't part of the lesson, Selena. It could be dangerous. She stepped closer, her tone challenging. And isn't danger the best teacher, human? Daniel didn't answer, but in his gut, he knew this training was never going to stay simple. And sooner or later, it would push both of them far beyond what either expected. The forest was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Daniel stood by the edge of the path, his pack slung over his shoulder. He had planned today's training to be about survival skills, how to work together in unfamiliar territory. But as soon as Selena stepped outside, he knew she had other plans. She wore a simple, dark outfit, light enough for moving quickly. Her golden hair was tied back, but a few loose strands framed her face. Her eyes shone with something more than curiosity. There was challenge in them. Today, she said calmly, we see if I can trust you. And if you can trust me, Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's the point of the survival lesson. No, Selena replied, stepping past him into the trees. This will be my test, Leora, standing at the doorway, called after them in their own language, her tone urgent. Selena waved her sister off without answering. Disappearing into the forest shadows, Daniel sighed and followed. They walked in silence for a while. The sounds of the settlement fading behind them. The forest here was dense, shafts of sunlight cutting through the tall canopy. Daniel pointed out edible plants, safe sources of water, and natural landmarks. But Selena seemed distracted her. Eyes kept scanning the trees as if searching for something else entirely. After an hour, they reached a small clearing. Daniel dropped his pack and began preparing a fire. First skill fire building, he said. It's essential for warmth, cooking, and safety. Selena knelt beside him, watching as he arranged dry branches. Fire is controlled danger, she said softly. It burns, but it also protects. Daniel struck the flint, sparks leaping into the dry kindling. Within minutes, a small flame flickered to life. Selena's gaze lingered on it, almost mesmerized. Then, she stood abruptly. Wait here, Before Daniel could reply, she vanished into the trees. Selena. He called, but there was no answer. He cursed under his breath and grabbed his pack. Following her trail, the forest grew darker as he moved deeper, the ground uneven. He finally spotted movement ahead, a flash of green fabric between the trees. When he caught up, Selena was standing on a fallen log, looking down at something below. "What are you doing?" Daniel demanded. She pointed without looking at him. Below, in a narrow gully, a strange animal was caught in a crude snare. It had long legs, scaled skin, and frightened eyes. "It's trapped," Selena said. "Someone left it to die." "Do humans leave the weak to suffer?" Daniel climbed down carefully, examining the snare. "No," he said firmly. "We free them, if we can." Selena jumped down beside him, watching as he worked the knot loose. The animal hissed, but didn't attack. Limping away once freed, Daniel turned to Selena. "That's trust, showing kindness without expecting anything in return." She tilted her head. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it was a waste of energy." Before Daniel could reply, a sudden rustle in the bushes made them both turn. 3 figures emerged, rough-looking. Not from the settlement. Daniel instantly stepped in front of Selena. One of the strangers grinned. "Well, look what we found, 2 wanderers far from home." "Stay behind me," Daniel whispered to Selena, but instead of fear, he saw excitement flash in her eyes. The strangers spread out, blocking the path. Daniel kept his voice calm. "We don't want trouble. We're just passing through." One man stepped closer, his hand resting on a crude blade. "Then leave your pack and anything valuable," he said. Selena moved slightly to Daniel's side, speaking softly so only he could hear. "This is your real test. Human will, you fight for me." Daniel didn't hesitate. He shifted his stance, ready to defend them. When the first attacker lunged, Daniel sidestepped and shoved him hard, knocking him off balance. The second man rushed in, but Daniel blocked the swing of the blade with his pack, using the weight to push him back. Before the third could act, Selena moved fast, precise. Her foot sweeping the man's legs out from under him, she stood over him, her expression unreadable. "Lesson over," she said coldly, before turning back to Daniel. The strangers scrambled away into the trees, muttering curses. Daniel exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. Selena's eyes met his. "You did not hesitate," she said quietly. "You placed yourself between me and danger. That is acceptable." Daniel gave her a wry look. "Acceptable?" "I thought I passed, perhaps," she said, her lips curving slightly. "But trust is not earned in one day, human." As they made their way back to the clearing, the fire Daniel had built was still burning. Selena sat beside it, warming her hands. For the first time since meeting her, she seemed almost relaxed, but as the flames danced in her eyes, Daniel had the uneasy feeling that her next test would be even harder. And this time, he might not see it coming. That evening, the forest outside was quiet, but the silence in the house was heavier than usual. Daniel sat at the workbench in his small workshop, trying to focus on repairing a damaged sensor unit, but his mind kept replaying the events of the Datha trap, the strangers, and Selena's strange satisfaction afterward. He had seen something in her eyes when the attackers came, not fear, but a kind of approval, and it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. The door slid open, and Leora stepped inside. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the dim light, but her face was tense. "You're troubled," she said quietly. Daniel put down his tools. "You could say that. Your sister. She's testing me in ways I didn't expect. This isn't just about teaching her manners, is it?" Leora didn't answer immediately. She walked to the small window and looked out toward the dark forest. When she finally spoke, her voice was low. "You're right, Daniel, this is not just about manners." Daniel leaned forward. "Then tell me the truth. Why am I the one teaching her? Why not you?" You know her better. Leora's shoulders tensed, because Selena does not trust me not in this matter. And because you are. Different how? Daniel asked. Leora turned to face him, her violet eyes steady. Selena is not just my sister. She is next in line to lead our people back on our homeworld. When our council agreed to join the new alliance with humans, they demanded that the next leader must understand human ways. Not just learn them, but live them, feel them. Daniel frowned. So I'm, what? A living example. You are more than that, Leora said. You are the test, Daniel. The council wants to know if a human man can be trusted with power, responsibility. And with someone like her, Daniel let out a slow breath. So all of this, the strange questions, the dangerous walks into the forest, it's all to see how I react. Yes, Leora admitted, and to see if you will fail. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Fail. Leora looked away, some on the council. They hope you will. They want to prove that humans are unfit to be close to Zellery leadership, that we should remain apart. Daniel sat back, trying to process it. So if I lose my patience, if I make a mistake, it proves their point, Leora stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. That is why I asked you, Daniel, because you are steady. You do not rush to anger. You think before you act. And because I trust you. Daniel held her gaze for a moment, and Selena. Does she know? This is what's at stake. Leora hesitated. She knows enough. But she is not just following the council's orders. She is testing you for her own reasons. She has always believed strength is the only thing worth respecting. And to her, trust is something you win in. Battle, not by words. Daniel shook his head. Well, she's making sure I earn it the hard way. Before Leora could reply, the door to the workshop slid open again. Selena stood there, leaning casually against the frame. You speak of me when I am not here, she said softly, her eyes flicking between them. Leora straightened. We were, I know, Selena interrupted. And you are right, human. I do test you, but not because I hate you. I need to know if you are worth listening to. Daniel met her gaze. And am I? Selena's lips curved faintly. Not yet, but you are close. She stepped inside, placing something small on the workbenchy carved stone, smooth and marked with intricate Zellery patterns. Daniel picked it up. What's this? A question, Selena replied. You will understand when you can answer it. With that, she turned and left, her steps silent. Daniel stared at the stone in his palm. The patterns twisting in the light. It felt heavy for its size, almost like it carried meaning he couldn't see yet. Leora sighed. She has given you her challenge. That stone is a symbol among our people. Can mean trust, claim, or warning. Only she knows which one she means right now. Daniel slipped the stone into his pocket. Then I guess the training just got a lot more complicated. He said, that night, sleep didn't come easily. The carved stone seemed to burn in his pocket, even as he lay in bed. Somewhere across the hall, Selena was awake. To Daniel could hear the faint sound of her pacing. Whatever her next move was, he knew it would come soon, and it would be harder than anything so far. The morning light was soft, but inside Daniel's small house, the air felt heavy thick, with things left unsaid, and challenges yet to come. Selena sat quietly in the living room, her violet gold eyes watching Daniel as he moved around. Preparing for the day's lesson, he could feel her gaze, sharp and unreadable, like a blade poised to strike. Daniel knew this lesson would be different, more personal, more dangerous in a way no survival skill or test of strength could prepare him for. Selena had said she wanted to learn how humans handled temptation. And those words echoed in his mind like a warning. He found her standing by the window, looking out into the forest. Are you ready for today's lesson? He asked carefully. Selena didn't turn to answer, but her voice came soft and steady. I'm ready if you are. They left the house and walked toward the forest's edge again. The trees here were taller, their shadows deeper. Daniel's senses sharpened as he prepared for whatever Selena's lesson might be. Why temptation? He asked as they walked. Selena smiled faintly, because temptation is a test of who you really are. It is easy to be strong when nothing threatens you, but true strength is in what you resist. Daniel nodded slowly. And how do you want me to teach you that? Selena stopped walking and turned to face him. We begin with honesty, she said, stepping closer. Tell me, Daniel, what is your greatest temptation? Daniel blinked, caught off guard. He hadn't expected the question to be so direct. He thought carefully, then answered truthfully, sometimes. It is to give up, to stop trying when things get hard. Selena's eyes narrowed. And what keeps you going? Hope, Daniel said simply, and the people I care about. She studied him for a long moment, then reached out and touched his arm lightly. Good, she whispered. Now, your turn. Daniel looked at her hand on his arm and swallowed. What about you? Selena's smile faded, replaced by something raw and real. I have many temptations, she said quietly. Power, control, respect things my people expect from me. But I have also known fear and loneliness. Daniel saw a flicker of pain cross her face for a moment. She seemed less like the fierce tester and more like a vulnerable young woman. Their moment was broken by the sudden sound of a sharp breeze rustling the leaves. Selena took a step back, her eyes flashing alert. We should move, she said. The forest is not always safe. They walked deeper into the woods until they reached a small clearing surrounded by ancient stones. Selena gestured for Daniel to sit beside her. Here is where I learned to face my own temptations, she said. And you will too, Daniel. Sat, feeling the cool grass beneath him. Selena began telling him stories of her childhood's pressure to be strong. The battles fought not just with weapons, but with trust and betrayal. Her words were like a window into a world Daniel had never known, full of pain and pride mixed with fragile hope. Then, without warning, Selena stood and looked directly at him. Now, Daniel, I will test you, she said. Her voice low. You must choose, will you trust me with your secrets, or will you hold back and lose this lesson? Daniel hesitated, but then spoke. I trust you, Selena. Her eyes softened, and she nodded. Good for the next hours. They talked openly about fears, mistakes, desires, and doubts. Selena challenged Daniel to be honest, not just with her but with himself, and Daniel saw her walls begin to crumble, piece by piece, revealing a woman desperate to be understood. As dusk fell, Selena stood and took Daniel's hand. You have passed today's lesson, not by strength or skill, but by courage, the courage to be vulnerable, she said softly. Daniel squeezed her hand. Thank you. But Selena's voice turned serious. Tomorrow will be harder. Daniel, the real test is yet to come. He looked into her eyes, full of fire and warning. I'm ready, he said, knowing deep inside that this was only the beginning. The sky was a dull gray when the warning sirens began to wail across the settlement. Daniel stood at the window, watching the dark shapes moving through the trees. Pirates rough, dangerous, and armed were closing in fast. His heart pounded as he grabbed his weapon, ready to defend the home he shared with Leora and Selena. Leora appeared beside him, her face pale but determined. We have to prepare, she said. They want to take what is ours. Selena stood calmly in the center of the room, her eyes cold and steady. I will fight, she said simply. No one will take me without a battle. Daniel nodded, feeling a surge of respect for her courage. Together, the three of them moved quickly, setting up barricades, checking weapons, and preparing traps around the perimeter. As the pirates burst from the tree line, shouting and brandishing weapons, Daniel took position near the front gate. Leora stood by the communication console, ready to call for backup if needed. And Selena moved like a shadow, silent and deadly. The battle was fierce, with gunfire and shouts echoing through the forest. Daniel fired carefully, protecting those behind him. Suddenly, a pirate broke through the line and charged toward him, blade raised high before Daniel could react. A figure threw itself between them. Selena. She took the blow meant for Daniel, collapsing to the ground, blood staining her dark outfit. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he dropped his weapon and rushed to her side. Selena, stay with me, he shouted, pressing his hands to her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Her eyes fluttered open, and she gave him a small, tired smile. You protected me. Now I protect you, she whispered. Leora joined them quickly, calling for medical help. Through the comes, Daniel felt tears sting his eyes, not just from fear, but from something deeper, as the pirates retreated, defeated and confused by the fierce defense. Daniel held Selena close, his heart full of gratitude and sorrow. She had risked everything, not just for herself, but for him. In the quiet that followed, Selena squeezed his hand weakly. Now I understand humans, she said softly. You fight not just with strength, but with heart. You protect even those who test you. Daniel smiled, brushing a stray strand of golden hair from her face. And I trust you, he said gently. More than ever, Leora watched them with a peaceful smile, knowing her sister's training was finally complete. Selena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small carved stone, the same symbol from before. She placed it in Daniel's hand, her eyes shining with respect. This means trust, she said, not danger. Daniel held the stone tightly, feeling its weight and meaning. He knew their journey was only beginning, but in that moment, surrounded by the two Zolari women who had changed his life, he felt ready for whatever came next.